Okay, we're going to take a stab at reading chapter 1. The working title of the book right now is Inside Out, Messages from the Forest People. And so we've already done the introduction. And so here's the story. Nothing is as it seems. Not these letters, these words, this sentence, you, and certainly not me. Also, most of this chapter 1 should probably go in a foreword, but nobody reads those. I rarely do anyway. And if you do, then you already know that I can be as wrong as anyone else, especially about you. So, we are off to a good start. The story now has a beginning. It will have a middle, and I have already chosen a phrase to use at the end of this book part of the story proper, the published portion. But in this infinite universe, for those things that have a beginning, the rest is all middle, isn't it? And just as matter can't be created or destroyed, by us at least, real endings are few and far between. The story, the strangeness, and the awakening will go on as an infinite middle for you, and I hope for me too. My story is about experiencing, recognizing, realizing, and accepting the strange, the building of a relationship with it, intended or not. At this writing, here in old age, with the protagonist at 72 years and counting, for me I now see that the relationship exists. It is real. Many people, smarter, better educated, and more experienced than myself, do not. It connects what science professes to understand, namely the physical, and what it doesn't yet understand, the paranormal and the spiritual. The relationship may have always been there, but my experience with it and my understanding of it has evolved, much of it very recently. This is the story of how that happened and the explanation of some important conclusions that I have drawn from my research into the writings of little-known mystical Eastern faith. I draw those conclusions as would Captain Obvious, once he had read the same writings and once he knew for himself that other sentient beings are real. Those are two requirements for the good captain, and I admit they are doozies. But you will get to be the judge of that. As I tell it, throwing in all the good parts and leaving out what might embarrass anyone, living or dead, the story will be skewed by what I think of as compression. To keep you reading, we will go from relevant point to relevant point and ignore or summarize all the normal stuff of the day-to-day that make up the bulk of almost 3/4 of a century. If I do this right, it should all seem much more strange and exciting than it actually was, myself included. It will still be only as important as you feel it is or isn't. I am putting together the pieces of my own puzzle for your inspection and my own. You may critique it all you want, but there are only 4 opinions that matter to me, and they know who they are. I will try to give you a character arc for myself, one relevant to the subject. I am not well read, but I suspect there are lots of possible character arcs for me or you or anyone. And I have heard that good stories need one, and I have one in mind that I don't mind divulging, mostly under the guise of painting a background for the story to dance in front of. That's what shy people do. We keep to the background, if we can, until we can't. Then we get over our fear of being the front man for the band, the team, the family, the clients, whatever, until we don't have to anymore. Then we go back to being private, being who we are, knowing we can function in the spotlight if we must. You'll see. That's good enough for now. Good writers show 'em, don't tell 'em. And I want you to enjoy the story. I want you to be entertained. So, on November 3rd, 2023, I reconnected with a childhood friend who suggested I write a memoir. He had long ago gone off to New York and become a famous writer. I had gone off, ready, fire, aim, stumbled into a series of adventures, and somehow survived to be here when he returned to Quincy to be honored for his achievements at a fundraiser for his old high school. He had mentioned me by name to one of the event organizers, who had mentioned that to my lovely bride of 50 years, who told me. I usually don't attend events like that. I don't like meetings of any kind. But thanks to my old friend remembering my name, I felt I should show up. Mostly, I remember that he and I played the card game Hearts during afternoons at the swimming pool in Quincy, Illinois. I recall he had a propensity for winning by shooting the moon, though I don't remember exactly how that is achieved. A card player would know. I have never really played cards, except back then. Odd, isn't it? Why did I play cards at the pool with James, and then hardly ever play again? During his interview on stage at the fundraiser, my friend James, who taught at Columbia University, said some of his students wanted to change the world, and he had told them, good luck with that. Most of the attendees at the fundraiser gala chuckled. I did not, though anyone can understand his reasoning. We have all said the same words at one time or another, even me. I attended Columbia too, but I mean the one in Boone County, Missouri, where I played guitar at a coffee house in a church basement, the Shay, and married the girl next door upon my graduation in 1973. Still, since I share that one thing with some of his Columbia students, wanting to change the world, in a way, he had wished me good luck too, and without him knowing it, I have been trying all these years not to let him down, making the best of the luck I had, and trying to share with others any information I hoped they would find useful. That is what I am doing here now. I am glad I was nice enough to James in my youth that he remembered me somehow. It turns out that was very important. I also remember other things from long ago, as I will explain, and I now see their importance too. James and I had talked for just a minute before the program for the evening began. I told him that my wife Barbara and I had moved from the Holy Land directly to Sin City, and he told me I should write a memoir. A 1-minute conversation. That is precisely how all this book stuff started. That is the catalyst. I hope I don't let him down now, or you, or some other people who I am sure will not read this story anytime soon, although ultimately the story is about them. Anyway, it just seemed to me that if James Stewart told me I should write a book, maybe I should write one. Literally, within 5 minutes of leaving that fundraiser, a final piece, a capstone to all the highly strange phenomena of my life suddenly presented itself, unheralded, unexpected, but definitely not unwanted. Experience has taught me that the capstone episode is just the cornerstone of whatever is coming around the bend. So snatching up opportunity's broken sword, we begin. First, way before I enter the story, just after my great-grandparents, Henry and Lucy Seymour, moved into the stone house, which I purchased in 2022, bringing it back into the family after an absence of 24 years, they had a special guest for a dinner gathering one evening in the early 1920s, right here in Adams County, Illinois. A local paper had described the gathering on the paper's social page. My mother sent me the article while Barbara and I were working in Haifa, Israel in 1999. Henry and Lucy Seymour were hosting a traveler who gave a talk to their gathered dinner guests about something called the Baha'i Faith, which they said they had found very interesting. I found that very interesting, living as I do now, a Baha'i, in the very rooms where that fireside chat had occurred all those years before. But more than that had happened on that spot, which is also relevant to this strand of the tapestry. Another house had once stood on that very location. Before Lyman K. Seymour and his wife Agnes could build the stone house, they first had to move the original frame residence erected on that site in the 1840s. Also in the 1840s, a new faith was proclaimed in Persia. The house was moved a few hundred feet to the south, and throughout my life we have called it the Middle House. It is still standing, and I have lived in it, moved away from it, returned to it, and have now again moved on, but just next door. Its relevance to this thread is that there are still hiding places within it from its days of service to the Underground Railroad, of which my ancestors were a part in the 1840s and 50s. Some early Baha'is were also involved with that secret endeavor on behalf of human rights before the faith came to North America. Some of their descendants, also Baha'is, visited Barbara and I when our children were small, as we planned to go pioneering to Barbados. We made salsa in the kitchen of the Gray House, as I recall, and it was good. And still others of that family line lived and worked nearby for some years, and we remain friends to this day. Do you see why I feel there is some mystical relationship between this spot and my family and the roots of a still largely unknown faith? If you are reading this book, then you and it have become part of that thread as well. And just because a well-known author makes an offhand suggestion that I write a book, well, that doesn't make me a writer, does it? Especially if I have never written a book before. I haven't. But I have encountered the unknown before, and I embraced it, as you will see. So I will write my book, a unique approach to a unique crossroads. And that's the end of chapter 1. We really get to the good stuff in chapter 2. Thanks for listening. I'll try not to make it too long between, but I have to write and I have to work. So I'll see you next time. Bye.